This is a particular bank, assets, liabilities, and the bank has reserves, which we're saying for the moment is cash, but it could also include deposits at the Bank of Canada. And this is, let's say it's 8 million. And that. And then over here, we have deposits, which is equal to okay, I'll say I'll say 40 million for the moment. Okay, and it turns out, by the way, before I get all this stuff going, the reserve ratio in this system is 8%, which we think of as 0.08 in the way we calculate. Okay, now, first of all, I don't know if I asked you a question like this last day, but if I didn't, then you'll get to do it, because I'm going to ask it on an exam. What are the loans, by the way, at this point? What are the loans that this bank has? Huh? How much? Carl?
6 million.
6 million. Think, okay. Did I give you a question like this last day? Did I? I did? Eric, I gave you a question like this? Okay, then you should know the answer. Oh, by the way, Alicia asked me something that I need to tell you because I just noticed her. She asked me, she talked to one of the TAs and heard that we were not covered, we hadn't yet covered some of the material the other sections had covered, and therefore we needed to have some makeup lectures in the last week of class, that is August 5th, 6th, and 7th, and whatever that week is. Number one, no. We've covered everything in the sections having way beyond that. I just made up my set of the practice questions, and one of the other guys said, we don't cover this. Don't you worry, we covered everything and more than they did. That's done. And we did so that you would know all of it, and the simple part would be able to handle it. Just remember though, I've seen people where you're training to be able to do the difficult stuff, and you give them simple stuff and they fall flat on their faces. But hopefully you won't. Okay, so that's why I have you do those multiple choice. By the way, what's going to happen in this next exam, we're going to have 5 multiple choice by me. None of that Mickey Mouse junk that I've been giving you from previous final exams. My kind of multiple choice, which will make you stand up and think. And you'll realize the difference. Okay, so good. So, next. So, we've covered everything that they've covered and more. That's not an issue. What we want to do in that last week is have at least 3 seminars. One by me, one by the TA Lisa, who's really good, and one by the TA Young. And maybe another seminar. It's just hard to work it all in because the exam is so quick. Where, for example, one of the TAs will cover all the multiple choice on micro. You'll go for a 3-hour seminar and they'll go through all the previous final exams on multiple choice, so you're honed to perfection. Then Young maybe will do all the macro ones in another day. And then in another day, I will cover the other 50% of the exam, which would be what I would ask you guys. In particular, cover a lot of the macro stuff which you have a lot of familiarity with. We'll run through it, we'll do, go through, remind you of like our diagrams and calculations and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's the purpose of those seminars in that last week. I'm going to set them up, and I strongly advise that you go, because what they are is, and the idea is going to be, particularly with mine, when you walk in, I own you. Don't forget, I let fly on you. When I say do this, you do it, you're gone. I won't stand for it. I want everybody working. I'm not going to try to lead you. I want you drawing. If I say to you, I want you to draw Monopoly, blah, 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 I need you to do it. I'm going to walk around and say, no, correct this. This is wrong. That's the only way to do it. It's a 3-hour correcting of mistakes to hone you, right? So that's what that's going to be about. Okay, everybody? That's what's happening in that week, that last week. Not the 12th. The 12th, we're probably going to, I don't know what we're going to cover on the 12th. I'm hoping it's only exchange rates. And exchange rates, if it's on the exam at all, it'll be very minor, like 1 or 2 marks, okay? Any burning issues on this? Yeah.
Just wanted to ask about the seminars. They're going to be in the evening, afternoon, don't know yet?
The trouble is that they're not going to be in the evening because this class is in the evening. We still have classes. Normally, in the term, you know, you actually have the term ends. There's a reading week or a study week between the beginning of exams. And so during the normal winter term, we would have it right in there. People, you know, there'd be no interference with lectures. But I've got another section, so I want them to be able to come. So absolutely not at night. It'll be in the afternoon.
The reason I'm asking is because they require taking time off of work. So.
Yeah, no, I'm going to try to set it up. But it's likely going to be something like 2 to 5 or something like that. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. For me, yeah, because I think I can do Thursday. Right now I have a trial. I can't do Tuesday. I'm booked totally from like 12 noon to 9. But on that week I'm free on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'll probably do Thursday. Okay, good point. All right, here we go. Now, everybody, I noticed you're getting tired of me talking about banking. All right, here it is. Now you get to think. I want to know the amount of loans. What are the amount of loans, Erica? 32 million. Where did you figure that out, Erica? Yeah, because double entry accounting, the sum of assets always equals the sum of liabilities. This is always true, right? So we have here, loans you'll notice are, listen, loans will always be deposits minus reserves. All right, now, that's what it is right now. My question is, what are reserves and deposits at equilibrium? Is the bank in equilibrium? Yes or no? Is the bank in equilibrium? You're the banker. Are you in equilibrium right now? Huh? Why not, Kyle?
Because, I am. Okay, so because deposits are 40 million, because the reserve ratio is 8%, you can actually lend out more because you are.
Exactly. So it turns out if the deposits are 40 million, you only need 8% of that, right? Which is going to be 3.2 million. You only need 3.2 billion in reserves. You have 8 million in reserves. Your business is to maximize profit, and you're not getting profit from a certain amount. So now something has to happen to go to equilibrium, and I need you to think about this and then in fact write it down, because we talked a lot about this last day. One or two things happens. Either deposits change and reserves stay the same, or reserves change and deposits stay the same. Which is it? So what is equilibrium? Reserves are 8 million, deposits are whatever that would dictate. Or deposits are 40 million and reserves are whatever that would dictate. What is the answer? Don't screw up. Think about banking. Think about you going to the bank. Okay, who other than Erica is going to answer this question? Do reserves change or deposits change? Alicia, go ahead.
Deposits change?
Why so? Why so, Alicia?
Because people decide how much money they want to put.
Sorry?
People decide how much money they want to put.
Yeah. Remember I said this many times last day. Banks have no control over their reserves. The public decides how much they wish to hold. And if there's no change in currency in circulation, there wouldn't be because I haven't said so, then basically it doesn't matter what banks do, and we saw that from the process. The banks can try to even get rid of their reserves. They won't be able to because the public will be redeposited, just like you. Let me see what I've got on in here. Probably not very much. Let's just check it out. All right, look at it. Attention. Here we have, what is this here? Okay, let's say don't worry too much with the reserve ratio. This is $80. This is the money that is issued by the Bank of Canada. It goes to you guys. Now, of course, it's an issue how you get it. We'll talk about it in a minute. Because the bank buys bonds. She represents all of you. Here's the money. She has it. Look at it. Turns out she wants to hold 40 billion. This is representing $80 billion in whatever this is. It doesn't add up to that, whatever this is. $65 billion right here. She wishes to keep, we'll say, 40 billion. Right? Where does this go? You people want 40 billion. Where does the rest go? What are you going to do with it? I'm giving you more money than you need. You can think about if I just gave you $1,000 in cash. What would you do with it? You lend it out? You've got friends that you can lend it out to? No, really, I'm just going to give you $1,000 in cash. What do you do with it? Is that, then that's not a surprise, is it? Can you be surprised by this? No. You're not surprised. If you don't need it, what do you want it for? The bank isn't paying high interest now, but they're paying something. Okay, it goes into the bank. Here's the banks, right? They have 35 billion, or whatever that is right there. What is it? 25 billion, okay? Their reserve ratio is, say, 20%. They're supposed to be making money, right? They don't make money when this is sitting in the bank, right? So they have deposits of 25 billion because you deposit it. They keep 5, which is 20%, and they lend this back to the public, right? Say over here. Now this is another member of the public. She needs money, right? Because she doesn't have enough. So she borrows it for a car or whatever. There it is, right? She buys the car, say, from somebody else. Omer here, he's not a bank. She bought the car from Omer. Now what does Omer do with the money? Deposits it. Notice, back in the bank. Okay, let's keep another 20% of that. Let's lend it out to her again, because now she's going to buy a house. Buys it from Omer. Omer deposits it. There is no way the bank can get rid of the reserves, except temporarily. It always comes back. Literally, this is what happened. The cash comes back. And again, I can say you 1,000 times. Even like, for example, supposing I gave her $1,000 and let's say she takes $100 a week out of the bank. She keeps the $1,000. Guess what? She doesn't take $100 out of the bank probably for 10 weeks. She's got the $1,000 and she uses it up, right? So whatever happens, ultimately, depending on what the public wants to hold, and you can examine this yourself. All of you have habits. There's nobody in this room I would think I've already met such a person who's completely erratic. Like one day, depending on the money you have, right? If you have enough money to do this, let's suppose you have enough money to have 200 in cash at any time you want it. But one week you decide to have $2, and the next week you decide to have 150, and the next week 100, and the next week 5. It doesn't happen. Everybody has a behavior using cash, right? So that's what happens. The banks cannot change their reserves under any circumstances, right? Everybody sold. What are the reserves? Alicia told you, they're 8 million. Now tell me what the equilibrium is. What is the equilibrium for 2 marks? Let's have it.
3.2.
No. If reserves were 3.2, the reserves changed. But as I showed you, what will happen is initially the bank will hold 3.2 million reserves. We're interested in the equilibrium result. They'll lend out 4.8 million. It'll come back. Then they'll keep a portion of that for reserve and lend it out again. It'll come back. And through this process, loans will go up, deposits will go up, and they'll expand to what equilibrium? What is the equilibrium deposits? What? Is it 100 million? Is it? I don't know. Is it? Like I myself am practically blind in here. Is the equilibrium deposits 100? Are the equilibrium deposits 100 million? How so? How did you get it then? How did you get that answer? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. Of course you are. For some reason my brain is thinking about the 40. Yes, it's 8 divided by 0.1. Everybody? Not not difficult. Deposits in equilibrium are simply, I mean, this is all you need to know. Number one, currency in circulation is, money supply is currency in circulation plus reserves divided by deposit, by the reserve ratio. Deposits are the reserve divided by the reserve ratio. Loans are deposits minus reserves. The money multiplier, sometimes called that, I don't like it. The deposit multiplier is 1 over the reserve ratio. Okay? You're going to do a test now. And then you're going to shift your paper to the next person. So take it seriously. This is on your exam. Could be 5 marks, likely 4. Okay. Same reserve ratio. Bank of Canada, note issue, legal tender, same idea. Notes and coin, there should be notes and coins. Liability, I'll say, because that's also another phrase, is 44 billion. The currency in circulation is $32 billion. And that's all we need to know. Number one, here you go. Let's see if you can get 5 out of 5. I'm moving quickly. What are deposits? Or what are reserves? What are the reserves in this system? Exactly this question on the exam coming up. What are the reserves? Just put it down. Hey, Kyle, get to it. You got 10 seconds. Do it. Always have your calculator. All right, what are the reserves? Number 2, what are deposits? Just apply the formula. Formulator. Okay, 3. What is the deposit multiplier? Number 4. What is the money supply? Number 5. What are loans? All this in equilibrium, of course. Okay, switch. Switch your paper. Let's do it. Let's see what you're made out of. Okay? Find a partner. Come on now, not all day. I thought you guys were sharp. You're getting such high averages. Let's do it. I don't think I've seen a single person shift. Let's do it. Okay? Who has shifted already? Have you guys shifted? Do it. Pay the price. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Shift. I want it marks. Shift. Kyle, who have you shifted with? Come on. What about you two? Shifted? Let's do it. Let's do it. You ran out of time. No, 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 no. You're not thinking fast enough. Shift. Here we go. All right, everybody? Good. What are reserves? All together. Well, what are they? What's your name? Cat? Cat? Cat. Good, cat. Katarina. Cat. What are reserves? Cat says the reserves are 12. Is this correct? Is it really possible you guys got a 74 average in this last exam? No. You must be kidding. You must have been cheating. What are reserves? The simplest question on earth. The currency printed, physically printed, is 22 billion. The public have 32 billion, and where's the rest of it? Where's the rest of it? What do you think the rest of it is? Huh? In the banks, it can't be the rest. I'll look. Because this is probably the source of the confusion. When I said it's the Bank of Canada note issue, I mean, now here the thing is, if you said, how much currency does the Bank of Canada have? That is kind of a foolish question. Why is that a foolish question? Because the Bank of Canada prints the stuff. You don't need to say, you might say, well, the Bank of Canada has it. What do you mean? They don't only have that, they have any amount that they want to print. The Bank of Canada is totally outside. I do it, I give it to the system, and that's it. You know, again, I keep saying, I issued 44 billion, it's in with you guys, I left the road, it's up to you. You do what you want with it. You kept 32, 12 goes into the bank. All right? Don't forget, this is a flat out simple question. Net, so reserves are 12. Deposits are what? Huh? 12? Reserves are 12, deposits are? Yes.
150?
150. How did you get that? Because it's the most, I mean, think about this. Now I'm telling you, I'm fully cognizant of this. This is the kind of thing like elasticity. It's annoying. I'm sure that I have the same trouble. But it's a stupid, simple little idea, and students take forever. And all you've got to do is, what is deposits? It's reserves divided by the reserve ratio. How difficult is that? 12 divided by 0.08, 150. What is the deposit multiplier? What is it? 12.5. Okay, people in the back, get ready. What is the money supply? Okay, I want you there at the far right. Money supply is, give me the formula for money supply. No. Yeah, you do the first row, right, that's it? Right there. You just turned your head. I want the formula for money supply. You guys in the middle, be ready. You guys. Listen to her formula, I want the answer. What is the formula for money supply?
Deposit minus reserves.
Yikes. Okay. What is the formula for money supply? You guys should have learned it from the beginning of this course. When I tell you something, you're expected to remember it. In the middle. Guys, money supply is, don't look down, look at me. CC plus deposits. This is difficult. What does that add up to next to you? With the half. The money supply. If it's CC plus deposits, what is it as a number? Huh? 24? Can't be. What are deposits? You told them. 150. And what is CC? 32. So it's 182. This is difficult. I'm going to ask this on an exam, and you guys are going to get marks for this. Give me a break. But the thing is, you need to do this mechanical jump. It's that simple. And what are loans? In the red.
138,
How'd you get that?
subtract the reserves from deposits.
Yeah, everybody. And for this model, reserves are Bank of Canada liabilities minus currency in circulation. Deposit multiplies 1 over the reserve ratio. Deposits are reserves divided by the reserve ratio. Money supply is currency in circulation plus deposits, and loans are deposits minus reserves. It's that simple. There's 5 marks. Okay, now, any issues with this? Because we're going to go ahead. I can promise you, when we do this in the exam, there'll be serious gnashing of teeth. Okay, now next. Let me show you a couple of things. As I told you before, the U.S., difficult to deal with, like as a banking thing. I'm totally confident with Canadian Bank in working with them. Because in the U.S., as I say, they literally borrow reserves. What the heck does that mean? Banks can borrow reserves, and sometimes there's reserves, but they're not necessarily borrowed yet. So as I'm going to show you, there's lots of reserves in the United States. But who the heck has them is a question, literally. You know, the banks kind of have them because they sort of borrow them or whatever. But what are they doing? It's really hard to figure out. But in Canada, and if you said the bank has reserves at the Bank of Canada, that's kind of easy to figure out. But literally in Canada, the reserves of the banks, I can go to the Bank of Montreal and I can put my hand on it. It's not something like, yeah, do they have reserves at the Bank of Canada? Some kind of fuzzy idea like that. Literally there. Look here. Here is, just a minute. Okay, got rid of that. Where is it? Okay, here we are. Okay, look at this. Everybody, this is the amount of reserves. This looks like this. This is the charter bank deposits at the Bank of Canada. You can see they're almost non-existent in 1950, and they're totally non-existent today. Another way of showing you this is to look here. This file right here. Okay, look, everybody. Carefully. These are the reserves of the Canadian banking system. These are the reserves, wait, of the Canadian banking system, right here. I'll just move this over. These are the reserves of the Canadian banking system in 1953. They were 933 million total were the reserves of the Canadian private banks. Of that, about a third was coins and notes, literally in the vaults of banks, legal tender. About 2/3 were deposits at the Bank of Canada. In other words, they exist, but they exist as kind of an ability to draw on the Bank of Canada. The Bank of Canada can print that stuff, but it doesn't, it doesn't mean that the bank's necessarily doing anything with it. We don't know, right? So now notice then, when we get to the present day, or to 2008, notice, and now the reserves of the private banks were $4.5 billion, of which 4.3 billion is in the notes in the banks. So in Canada, reserves are essentially bank notes, physical legal tender. Now we also need to know about bank deposits at the Bank of Canada, as I'll explain in a second, okay? But maybe because you have to know that for American work, but not our own. Here's another amazing thing, watch, because this one is actually pretty impressive thing. U.S. reserves, let's look at this carefully. These are the total amount of U.S. reserves in the U.S. banking system. Again, these are in the banks, the private banks. You can see that between here, 1959, 1960, they had $20 billion in reserves. In 2008, they had $40 billion in reserves. In other words, over that whole period of 50 years, the reserves of the U.S. banking system doubled. Now, you might think, well, who gives a darn about that? Well, first of all, Keynes was unseated, and the kind of argument about, equilibrium and government spending and all this kind of junk was thrown out in the 1970s in favor of a return to the argument that markets balance by themselves, and that the problem is not markets, but governments, because governments screw up the money supply, and by changing the money supply, they change prices, and changing prices, general prices, inflation, causes the markets to misfire. So now note, what happens is this, in this period right here, there is no inflation. This is the early 60s, no inflation. Notice the reserves are not going up at all. There's no increase in legal tender, if you will. It's not actually legal tender, but there it is. Then in this period here,